The Verge has posted a really spicy video talking about the Steam Deck and one of the Steam Deck's biggest competitors, the AYANEO 2, and basically said point blank, they would not trade their Steam Deck for an AYANEO 2 because, well, we're going to get into that. Anyways, guys, I'm Blaze2K. If you want Steam Deck content on your YouTube homepage every single day, multiple times a day, please like, subscribe, click the bell icon. I'm glad to be back on YouTube. I've not been posting videos for a while. I'm back now. It's going to be fun. Come join me for the ride. Anyways, guys, yeah, The Verge posted a really spicy article talking about why the Steam Deck is still king, and we're going to get into it and take a look at it in this video. Anyways, guys, let's get into it. And hopefully you've clicked the like, subscribe, and bell icon already. Let's go. So guys, if you don't know already, the AYANEO 2 is, you've probably not heard of AYANEO. If you're into handheld gaming like I am, you probably have. They're basically a Chinese company, or a company based in China, that have basically just released the ultimate competitor to the Steam Deck as of right now. Okay, it's a Windows gaming handheld. It's really sleek, guys, really nice looking. It's got an AMD 6800U in it. It's technically more powerful than a Steam Deck, so that's why it's getting a lot of attention. Has a beautiful screen, full body screen, barely any bezels. It's just powerful as heck. It's got a full NVMe SSD in it. You can get it up to like 2 terabytes. You can get like 2 terabytes of storage with it. It comes in a bunch of different colors. It's got a beautiful design, guys. It really is, and a whole joysticks and whole triggers as well. So you have to worry about dead zone, same linear motor as the Nintendo Switch for force feedback, all that good stuff. It's basically, if you were to dream of the perfect, most powerful gaming handheld right now, this would probably be it. Okay, but with that, it comes with a very pricey price tag. All right, I believe it's like $1,300 or something, around that ballpark. Especially if you spec it up, you know, it can get a little bit pricey. So it's, as far as price goes, it's not really in the ballpark, or it's not really in the same waters as the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck's obviously $399 at the cheapest. So yeah, The Verge basically gave their opinion on it and says they wouldn't trade, or the writer, Sean Hollister, says, I wouldn't trade my $400 Steam Deck for this $1,300 AYANEO 2. AYANEO 2 review. This flashy competitor has the Steam Deck beat on specs, but you can't play on a Steam Deck, on a spec sheet, sorry. And here it is here, so we're going to take a look at it. So anyways, he says, I keep hearing that the AYANEO 2 is effectively a Steam Deck Pro. The suggestion seems to be, if only it didn't cost twice as much, it might be the better pick. The Steam Deck wasn't, so on paper, the AYANEO 2 does seem better. It's smaller, it houses a more powerful processor, a bigger battery, and a higher resolution 1920 by 1200 screen. It comes with Hall effect joysticks and triggers that aren't liable to drift, RGB lighting, a fingerprint reader, a larger and bigger capacity, easier to replace SSD. It has not two, but 3 USB-C ports, 2 of which have USB 4.0 speeds, which let you charge from the top or bottom while plugging in both a keyboard and mouse at the same time. And another benefit of that being USB 4 is that it can support an external graphics amplifier. So basically, if you really want a future-proofed handheld that you could at some point, or right now, if you want to just buy an AYANEO 2 and a 4090 NVIDIA graphics card and shove it in a graphics amplifier, you could basically have this be your primary desktop gaming computer if you wanted to, obviously via the graphics amplifier that you would connect to it via USB-C. This thing has a lot of bells and whistles. And it basically has every bit of tech and hardware in it that you would ever want, right? But it's obviously $1,300. And doesn't have the support network and the sort of like repairability that the Steam Deck has. So you're basically paying $1,300 from a Chinese company for a console, really good console from a Chinese company. And as far as like warranty repairs, all that sort of stuff, it's a little bit dicey. But yeah, like back to the article. So yeah, the company product page is a love letter to geeks like me, and it was for me as well. I was considering buying one when they announced it on Indiegogo. Plus, Valve's handheld wishes it looked this good. It's awesome that I can independently light sticks orange and blue for a Portal makeover. But after 2 weeks of trying to replace my Steam Deck with the AYANEO 2, I'm going to be blunt. Price is not the problem. If you offered me a $1,300 AYANEO 2 in exchange for my Steam Deck, I turn you down instantly. So let's see why. What's wrong with the AYANEO 2? Why would he not trade his Steam Deck in for an AYANEO 2? Considering it's a $1,300 console, you know? You could sell it and probably get like 3 Steam Decks for that price, right? It does look pretty nice though. So here's the good and the bad, right? Fast performance at high wattage, smooth holostick sticks, compact design, but the bad is poor battery life, crashes and other glitches. Now, this is something that I think you're going to see a lot in, in mobile gaming consoles like the Steam Deck that are made by other companies, is the fact that they just don't have the software prowess to really make this thing shine. I mean, look at the Steam Deck. The company has basically made their own version of Linux, SteamOS. They're always updating it, pushing out updates, patches, Proton fixes every other day, it seems like. And they're always refining the software. They're making it unique to them. They've basically made it a unique operating system, unique to their hardware. And other companies like AYANEO are just never going to be able to replicate that. They're never going to be able to keep the pace when it comes to updates. And as far as future support down the line, you just don't know what you're going to be getting from AYANEO, right? I've obviously never tried one, so I can't tell you definitively what my opinion is about the AYANEO 2, because I don't have one. But, from the outside, it looks really nice. The specs are there, but like the reviewer said, you can't play specs. All right. What was this phrase? It was a pretty good phrase. Yes, you can't play a spec sheet. So there we go. So let's see. First, the good news. First, if you've got an older game with a dedicated gamepad support, one that runs well at 1080p resolution and modern integrated graphics, it can look absolutely phenomenal on the AYANEO 2. I've been waiting years for a good chance to replay the HD remastered Zone of Enders, the second runner, which doesn't yet run on the Steam Deck, and maybe smell to see how good Zoe 2 looks on the Aya's clear 323 ppi screen. That's one thing I like about this thing. The screen's absolutely beautiful. Now, it looks like an OLED, but it's not an OLED, it's just a really high quality IPS screen. This screen knocks the socks off of the Steam Deck screen, it really does. But we've spoken about that already. The Steam Deck screen isn't bad, it's just not great either. And I really hope they consider putting an OLED in the next one. But yeah, there we go, as you can see, very cool. And it's obviously running Windows, so you will be able to play, every game that you would on Windows, even ones that have anti-cheat. On this thing. Way more screen to body ratio than the Steam Deck. Secondly, the AYANEO 2 is absolutely more powerful than the Steam Deck, with an AMD Ryzen 6800U processor featuring a Radeon 680M graphics. It's got nearly twice the raw teraflops of graphical performance as Valve's custom chip, and in practice that means moving your games up a graphical tier 2. I play Control on my Steam Deck at 800p resolution and low spec, but with the AYANEO 2 I can move up to 800p high or even 1200p low in many scenes if I give the processor enough juice. But the Aya is constantly asking for that juice, and there just isn't enough to go around. In its default 22 watt game mode, the battery could make it to the 1.5 hour mark in Zoe 2. In Control, regardless of whether I picked 1200p or 800p resolution, I only managed to play for 1 hour and 9 minutes before it died. That's half the battery life I expect from my Steam Deck. The AYANEO 2 does charge far faster, a third of its battery in 20 minutes, 90% in an hour. That is pretty damn good, but it also gets hot enough I didn't feel comfortable recharging it right after a full drain, so it does have heat issues. But as you can see, the Steam Deck and the AYANEO 2 are like, as far as size goes, the AYANEO 2 just sort of knocks it out of the water a little bit. But keep in mind, the AYANEO 2 doesn't have touchpads, and that's one of my biggest negatives, I think, or biggest cons of this thing, is you'll be surprised how much you use the touchpads for just navigating, on Windows or SteamOS in the desktop mode, moving files between folders, copying and pasting, moving the cursor around. You'd be surprised how much you use them. And obviously, if you play games like RTS games that rely on like mouse input, the touchpads are indispensable. So I'm really surprised they never added any sort of touchpad input here on the AYANEO 2. But as you can see, the size is pretty phenomenal, right? It's a good bit shorter and smaller than the Steam Deck in terms of length. Here it is from the back. It looks more akin to a Switch Lite a little bit when you look at the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck's very long. Again, that's 22 watts. Some of the Steam Deck versus AYANEO videos you've seen on the internet push the TDP as high as 33 watts, draining the battery even faster, making the fan noisier. And while you can tell the AYANEO 2 to use less power instead of more, I wasn't happy with the results. So basically, it's got the same issue that a lot of these handheld computers have, right? The battery life isn't going to be great, When you're playing games, at least AAA games, big 3D games, you're going to be looking at 1 to 2 hours, which is crazy, even on the Steam Deck at times. But like he says, the AYANEO 2 can only run at run Control for about 1 hour and 9 minutes, where you can get double the battery life with the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck's a little bit more optimized, and that's what you're always going to get with the Steam Deck, right? It's always been optimized by Valve. They're always trying to make it more efficient, trying to squeeze the most juice from that custom APU that you're using, the AMD one. So it's always going to run a little bit more efficiently. It's going to use less power, and in return, you're obviously going to get more battery life. Whereas the AYANEO 2, they're just letting you max that crap out at 33 watts as opposed to the 15 watts of the Steam Deck, right? And just get the most performance out of it as possible at expense of the battery. Okay, so that's kind of cool, but also not good if you want to play burning your hands off and charging at the same time. So yeah, manually adjusting the here we go. It says, even with the AYANEO 2's smart TDP app adjusting the wattage for me, I still only managed 1 hour and 45 minutes of playtime on Zoe 2, and also saw a bunch of weird frame drops in some sections, especially real-time rendered cutscenes, when the algorithm couldn't keep up. When I tried adding a 40 FPS frame limiter to normalize that, the gameplay got unbearably choppy. Manually adjusting the TDP down didn't help much either. Control, Zoe 2, and even Portal bogged down at a native resolution if I dropped down to the balanced 15 watt power setting. Yes, I'm talking about the Portal that came out in the year 2007, not Portal 2, or the new ray tracing version. I'm not the only one seeing this chip underperform at low wattage. Dedicated handheld reviewers like ETA Prime have testified that AMD 6800U simply isn't as efficient as the Steam Deck's custom chip. You've got to give it more juice or more gas to get going. So yeah, basically, like I said before, you know, the Steam Deck uses a custom APU from AMD, whereas the AYANEO 2 is using a more mainstream laptop CPU, APU in the AYANEO 2. And obviously the fact that the Steam Deck's using a custom one, they've obviously made it more optimized. They've optimized the power usage and stuff like that, so you can get the best performance you can at 15 watts. Whereas if you run games at 15 watts on the AYANEO 2, they're not really going to match up in terms of performance, and you're not going to get as efficient battery life with that. So AMD 6800U isn't the answer. While it looked like I'd be able to play Portal at 800p resolution for 2.5 to 3 hours, my test was trending that way. I can't actually tell you for sure because the game black screened after I had put it in handheld to sleep, and now black screens every time I tried to launch it. Oh no. So that's another thing I like about Valve and the Steam Deck, right? Is they're always pushing out fixes to Proton, the compatibility layer, and you know, graphics updates, stuff like that, and just system updates, just improve performance, improve reliability. You know, if this issue with Portal were to happen on the Steam Deck, you could be damn sure that Valve would be pushing out an update that fixes it within like the week. So that's another thing about Valve. They're really good when it comes to software and managing their software and basically optimizing it and improving it, right? Getting rid of the bugs. In my experience, failures like that are all too common. Over the past 2 weeks, I can count the number of glitch-free gaming sessions on one hand. I've had games crash, hard lock, fail to launch, and I've repeatedly watched the Windows handheld spinning on the reboot screen, forcing me to hard reset it. The gamepad controls and the mouse cursor sometimes fails to reappear after I put the system to sleep, and I've only had Windows seemingly disappear until I alt-tab. And I've had Windows seemingly disappear until I alt-tab. I've had some of these issues at the Steam Deck's launch too, but they've long since been ironed out. Even at launch, one of the Steam Deck's best features was the ability to pause a PC game just by hitting the power button and have it be right there when you return. I simply can't trust the AYANEO 2 to do that. Now, guys, look what I've got paused on my Steam Deck. Right, I'm going to turn the power on. This has been paused, or at least put to sleep since last night. Ignore the smudgy screen. What's that we're playing? Red Dead Redemption 2. Yes. Look at that. Ready to go. I'm literally in the game playing it. And this thing's been paused or put to sleep since last night, and it's still got good battery life. I could just jump into the game whenever I want. It's like mind-boggling how that works. But you can't do that in the AYANEO 2, or at least you can't without having a bunch of like bugs and glitches and weird things happen. So I do love that. He's got a point. The Steam Deck just has that hands down. It feels like a next-gen gaming console in that respect, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and those are just the issues we might be able to chalk up to Windows and general platform stability. We haven't begun to discuss the ISpace launcher that's critical to using this handheld. So yeah, basically they're saying it could be Windows, you know, it might be fixing the Windows update, but obviously the Steam Deck isn't going to have these issues, at least on SteamOS, because if they do have issues like that, they can patch it out pretty quickly, because they're pretty efficient at their software updates. Proficient, I should say. I get where Aya's coming from. Windows isn't made for gamepads, and Aya Space is there to fill the gaps. It turns your joystick into a mouse cursor, lets you summon a deck-like quick access menu with TDP, fan, and resolution settings with the press of a physical button, and serves as a full-screen joystick-friendly launcher for your games. A software update center and downloader for Aya's official FPS counter and other similar apps. It lets you map useful Windows commands to shortcut buttons, like summoning the virtual keyboard or task manager, or even taking a screenshot. You can adjust the sensitivity of the RGB lighting of your joysticks there, and the amount of haptic feedback. So basically, it's like a little overlay. It's like the quick access menu in your Steam Deck. You can, obviously have apps pinned there, like your web browser, Discord, Steam, etc. Change your TDP, kind of like you can do on the Steam Deck, change your resolution, adjust your volume and stuff like that. And obviously they've got like a game launcher stuff too, and you can really configure stuff. But every single part of Aya Space feels half-baked. It's slow, sometimes downright unresponsive. Some of the button prompts are wrong. Your changes don't always save. The only options for joystick sensitivity are 50%, 100%, or 150%, none of which felt like a normal Xbox or PS5 joystick without extra tweaking in Steam or in-game. There's no option to simply turn off the haptic feedback, which is louder and more annoying at its lowest setting than the Steam Deck's already not great haptic feedback. I couldn't find a way to keep the RGB stick lights from blinking when they're asleep. The whole app reverts to Chinese every time you update it, and it's clear they did not hire a native English speaker to localize the English parts. Oh, that's bad. It also doesn't currently have one of the most important features of the Steam Deck, a native, highly customizable controller configurator system, so PC games that weren't designed for a gamepad can still be easy to play. I didn't expect the AYANEO 2 to adopt the Steam Deck's trackpads, but I was surprised to find its controller configurator entirely empty and seemingly unfinished, with no way to map the gamepad controls to keyboard keys. That is pretty freaking bad, not gonna lie. Where's AYANEO Space? There it is. There's the launcher and stuff. Your quick access to your games. That's pretty bad. It reverts to Chinese after every update. That's no thanks. I don't speak Chinese, so that's a big deal. You can get around that by using Steam itself to create controller profiles. In fact, as of a recent Steam update, the big picture mode now looks like a lot like the Steam Deck's UI, but Steam doesn't recognize the AYANEO 2's extra buttons and gyro, and the handheld doesn't have a button to summon Steam, so you can continually experiment with those controls mid-game. That's one thing I really like about the Steam Deck. Obviously, if you're playing older games that don't really support gamepads natively, chances are someone in the community has created a community controller layout or config that you could easily switch to mid-game if you want to. It doesn't look like that's a thing for the AYANEO 2. I had to launch Portal from Steam to play it with the AYANEO 2's controls, and while you can use Steam to remap some of them for individual games, much like on the Steam Deck, you can't easily revise them mid-game, so that's a bit of a pain in the ass. Speaking of controls, some of them were bright spots in my testing. Buttery joysticks, velvety triggers, smooth bumpers, and tight face buttons. Individually, each of them felt better than the Steam Deck to me, though I wish the triggers had some rubber stops so they wouldn't smack when fully pressed. More importantly, the gyro in my review doesn't seem to work on the X-axis unless you spin on a swivel chair, making my favorite way to aim with a handheld gaming system almost worthless. I also take issue with the D-pad's too tall pivot point, something my former colleague Sam Byford also mentioned in a previous AYANEO review, and a combination of an offset right joystick and too little grip for my fingers underneath the system. While I actually like how the pillow grips feel under my hands, I have to shift my grip so much to get my thumb under the right joystick, and there isn't enough room for any other fingers to grab. I have average sized hands. Also, unlike the Steam Deck grips, they aren't thermally isolated. They start to get warm after 20 minutes of play. That's a big deal. That's a real big pain point there. One thing I love about the Steam Deck is that they keep the grips either side so far away from the CPU and stuff like that. Stuff that, gets hot, obviously. So you can play this thing for hours and hours and your hands won't get hot, your hands won't get clammy or sweaty. That's what I really like about the Steam Deck. Call it wide, call it chunky, call it big if you want, but the ergonomics of this thing are solid. And obviously with this thing, your hands are going to be getting a little bit warm and toasty because they're not thermally isolated. You're going to be feeling that heat coming from the CPU. And since you can feed it more juice, the CPU more juice and up to 33 watts of TDP, and charge it at the same time, this thing's going to get really toasty pretty fast. So yeah, I also like the AYANEO 2's fan, which is both relatively quiet and effective at ejecting heat, but it doesn't seem to stop the system from producing an actual painful to touch hotspot you can feel through the upper right hand corner of the display. Yikes. And that, you know, all that heat is not a good thing for displays. You know, chances are you're going to be having issues down the line, years and months and years later, possibly sooner. You know, with heat wear, it's going to wear the display. You can see the ribbon cables that, you know, connected to the motherboard getting deteriorated or just damaged from all the heat. We've seen that happen on laptops, you know, so all this thing being in one compact, tight little package, all that heat's got to go somewhere, and effectively it could at some point, you know, ruin some of the components in there, whether it be the motherboard, the display, you know, God knows what. So that's a little bit worrying. So the fingerprint reader is embedded in the power button, didn't work half the time I used it. AYANEO advertises that it's supposed to be a one-touch power and login button. In practice, that means it scans my finger very quickly and repeatedly before I've properly planted it, and then kicks me into the pin screen instead. I've asked the company about a few issues, but I'm afraid it got lost in translation. When I asked about the gyroscope, a rep who goes by Crystal replied, "At present, the operation method of the gyroscope is the same as Switch, which is operated left and right through D-pad." Okay, if you've read this far and are still interested in the AYANEO 2, the one thing I'll say is maybe check out the AYANEO Geek instead. The lower end configs have an 800p screen like the Steam Deck with less than half the pixels to push. That should mean better performance and battery life with the same 6800U chip. I can't vouch for the quality of that screen, but I can tell you the AYANEO 2 screen came with oversaturated colors, and unlike the Steam Deck, doesn't get dim enough to use comfortably in a dark room, FYI. Mine also has a little bit of backlight bleed, though I have a similar amount on my deck too. I am Osborne. I'm tempting to think that the AYANEO 2's additional power makes it the right choice for power users, but I haven't found that to be true. You can effectively tweak far more with the Steam Deck, and it's easier. I've had more fun reviewing the Steam Deck, even in its original messy state, than I did with this handheld. So yeah, basically, it's full of bugs, full of issues in terms of, you know, just their software that they've made. Whoever designed the software or programmed it wasn't a native English speaker, so it does seem to have a lot of issues when it comes to translation. And just a lot of bugs by the sound of it. You know, I'm kind of glad I never bought this thing now. I'm sure AYANEO 2 will nail it eventually. Well, you know, keep thinking that. We can only hope, right? If you're paying $1,300 on a handheld, you would hope so. But obviously, it's a Chinese company that pumps out like 5 of these things a year, so will it ever be fixed? Do they have time to fix? Do they have time to fix it? They're probably working on like another 5. The company has launched 9 handheld gaming PCs in 2 years. Okay, sorry, I take that back. 9 gaming PCs, handheld gaming PCs, with more already announced and on the way. But I can't think of a single type of person who should buy this particular one. Buy it for the bragging rights? Sure, you could have the most powerful portable PC for a fleeting moment. One you can play for an hour at full bore before the company makes it obsolete within 6 months from now. Or you can wait. Or you can buy a Steam Deck, a Linux game system that, believe it or not, works better than this Windows machine. So there we go, guys. $400 for the Steam Deck versus $1,300 for the AYANEO 2. The AYANEO, you know, the Steam Deck's got pretty good repairability. It's got repair centers in the US. It's got software that's optimized and continually refined. You know, it's an American company, if that means anything to you. You know, so obviously you're going to be getting supported a lot more with this thing, both with software, repairability, all that good stuff. You can, hell, they sell the parts on iFixit, so you can repair this thing yourself if you wanted to. Whereas the AYANEO 2, you're paying $1,300 for that, and you're kind of left to your own devices with it. You know, if there's bugs, who knows if they're going to ever fix them? If there's issues down the line with the hardware, with the heat and stuff like that, you're kind of on your own. I don't think they're going to be opening any repair centers anytime soon in the US, so it could end up being a very expensive paperweight down the line. So yeah, it seems like the AYANEO 2 isn't worth purchasing right now. If you were me, just stick with the Steam Deck. I know everybody wants a more powerful system. Everybody wants like a better Steam Deck with a better screen, more power, all that good stuff. But really, is it worth risking it? Taking a gamble on the AYANEO 2? I don't know. At least not yet. Anyways, guys, sorry for the long-winded video. Again, kudos to The Verge and to Sean Hollister here. I'll put the full article down below in the video description or the top comment of this video. Really good article, summed up the AYANEO 2 perfectly. You know, as nice as it looks, as good as the specs look on paper, you can't play a spec sheet, okay? And honestly, for that price, it's a tall order. All right, you know, if you're paying that much money, everything should be perfect. You shouldn't be having all the bugs that this guy's having. The software bugs, and like I says, they've already got a couple of new consoles announced. They've released 9 in the past 2 years. Are they really going to knuckle down and improve this thing and make it perfect? Chances are no. So there we go, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. I know it's a cool device. I wanted one. I was going to order one. In fact, I did. I pre-ordered one when it came out on Indiegogo, and I ended up canceling it pretty early on because I'm like, do I want to spend $1,300 on this? Is it going to be that much of a step up from the Steam Deck? Nah, probably isn't. So I ended up canceling it, and honestly, frankly, guys, I'm kind of glad I did. Okay, obviously, I don't have one. I can't tell you how my experience is with it. AYANEO too, AYANEO, if you're wanting me to check it out. You know, my opinions might change, obviously, getting it in my hands. You know, I'm a little bit more tech savvy, I'm guessing, than some of these people, so I might be able to put it through its paces and compare it to the Steam Deck and really tell you, you know, if it is worth buying. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know down below. Check out my website, bestofdeck.com. It's the ultimate Steam Deck resource and hub, and it's going to be getting, I'm going to be sharing all the latest news with Steam Deck on here as well as videos, obviously. You could share news, you could share your videos, etc., talk about Steam Deck, find all the best accessories and stuff. Check out my list of favorite Steam Deck accessories, link in the video description and top comment of this video. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Blaze2K. Sorry, it's a really long-winded article, guys. I just wanted to talk about it and give you my thoughts on it. I'm going to be doing more videos talking about the AYANEO 2 in the future, maybe shorter ones, hopefully. And so yeah, stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for Steam Deck news, content, gaming tech, all that's good stuff on this channel. I stream every day at 3 p.m. Eastern. Come join me on stream. But yeah, have a wonderful day. Like, subscribe, click the bell icon, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, guys. Hopefully the next video is a little bit shorter, right? Bye, guys.